Hello, my name is John Lorenz. I'm the race director for the Pleasant Prairie Junior Elite Cup that's taking place on Sunday, July 19th. And wanted to go ahead and take you through the athlete guide that we will be covering for the next several minutes. So appreciate everybody making the trek out to Pleasant Prairie this coming weekend. Just wanted to start with some opening thoughts. For those of you that were in Des Moines this weekend, obviously COVID-19 and a lot of the changes to the race were kind of top of mind. And so continuing that theme here, a big shout out to Craig Hankin and the Flatlands team and the Z3 for putting on a great event. And thank you to all the parents and athletes that kind of followed the procedures that the team had laid out. And you're going to find for our race this coming weekend that we are following a lot of the same things. And so I'm just going to touch on some of the COVID-19 things that are most critical. And I'll kind of run through these as the next couple pages. But the biggest thing is obviously respecting physical distancing, making sure that you're wearing a mask at all times for the parents, the athletes, similar to Des Moines, wearing a mask when they're not working out is something that we're requesting as well. And then just generally limiting the number of people in attendance. Um, Unfortunately, I know a lot of people like to bring people with them. We're asking that you leave, siblings, grandparents, friends at home if at all possible, especially those that are in high risk categories. Those that are very young, old, or anybody that has a compromised immune systems. And then we're asking, obviously, with 4 races happening that day, if at all possible, when you're done racing, if you could please exit the Recplex facility in Pleasant Prairie when you're done with your race. We're going to do obviously our best to protect our volunteers and staff. You'll see them with masks on, some with some of the plastic shields. You know, they're going to go ahead and have gloves for those that are, touching things that, other athletes may get into. So, um, at the same time, from your standpoint, we are asking you to kind of be responsible for your own protection. And again, it's bringing your own mask, making sure that you have hand sanitizer or your team that you're with has hand sanitizer in that tent area. And at the end of the day, I mean, we really need each of the individual athletes to be 100% committed for this to be successful. Before you arrive, just a few things. If you've come in close contact or cared for someone who has a confirmed COVID-19 diagnosis in the past 14 days, we're asking you please to stay at home. If you have any of the following, like fevers or chills or cough or shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, body aches, loss of taste or smell, sore throat, if you have a fever of 100.4 or higher, and in similar to Des Moines, we're going to have a waiver for everybody to sign. That's going to be your ticket to get into transition. And so if you're experiencing any of those things or you're not comfortable signing a waiver, again, the request is that you do not come to Pleasant Prairie. So again, very similar to what took place last week in Des Moines for those that were there. It'll be a very similar process, very similar waiver process, which I'll go through here in a second. I'm not going to go through this in detail. This is kind of just a summary of all the things that we just went through. Again, just to reiterate the importance of our safety procedures around COVID-19. Now getting into the schedule of events for the weekend. On Saturday, the packet pickup, which I'll get into more details on, is from 9 a.m. to noon. We are having a swim course, kind of course preview. The swim course time is from 8 until 9:30 a.m. We are going to try to kind of section off in 30-minute blocks some of the larger teams, and so I'll get in contact with a couple of those coaches and try to get specific 30-minute blocks so that we don't have everybody there all at one time. The overall course preview, kind of the time frame is that 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The big thing though that I want to stress is the bike course is not closed to traffic. And then you'll see this in the presentation as well. You know, the parking that we have is a little bit of a walk. It's about a quarter mile to a half mile. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. We are asking people during that course preview, do not kind of park in the park area where the athletes are going to be riding. It's super important from a safety perspective to keep cars out of that specific area within the park. We'll try to have a couple of volunteers at both ends to kind of screen people, but we cannot stop people from parking within that area. And so for those that are using it, to be aware that there will be potentially some car traffic during that course preview. And then the race times, just again to reiterate, we have moved the junior elites to the morning, and a big part of that is because of the heat and the length of that distance. It's those events will happen first. The junior elites start at 7 a.m. Junior elites, the males start at 8:30, and then the youth elite female at 10 a.m. and the youth male at 11 a.m. From a race location standpoint, again, just so that people are have the exact address of where we're racing. It's the Recplex facility in Pleasant Prairie. And if you haven't been there, it's an awesome facility that we're able to partner with. So very lucky to have that as a facility. Just touching on parking, I'm bringing this up this year because it's a little bit later event for us. It's a time period where baseball tournaments are happening right now. And so expect, especially if you come a little bit later in the morning, I believe kind of in that 7:30 a.m. type time frame is when some of the baseball teams kind of start to arrive. So if you're coming in after that, expect there to be some parking congestion. And so what we're trying to do is we're going to have a colored parking pass in each athlete's race packet. It's not going to guarantee you a spot, but we're going to try to have some volunteers in the couple areas, which I'll show you here in a second, that are kind of our areas that are closest for us to park, to try to filter out baseball individuals from parking in those lots. It is possible that they may fill with triathlon parking, and then individuals will kind of be on their own to find a spot. And so just wanted to make people aware of that, give yourself a little bit extra time. I know we've talked about it in the past, the walk from that parking facility to where the event is taking place is about a quarter to a half mile. A lot of times what people do is they drop their kids off with their bike and then kind of walk over with the things that they need for the day. This is just a map of the race site. You can see we're kind of basically across the lake from the main Recplex facility. And so when you come into the park off of Highway 65, the parking facilities are going to be those first lots on your right-hand side when you come into the facility, and I've got those notated here on this map. Again, just course preview, 8 o'clock to 9:30 is when the swim is actually going to be happening, but we will have people available until 10 a.m. trying to man the kind of car traffic situation. It's the only time to swim in Lake Andrea. Again, the course will not be closed. There's definitely no parking within kind of the race bike course. Team trailers and tents. I just again want to make sure that if you're coming to the course preview, you definitely have to have that taken care of either before that 8 a.m. time frame or afterwards. The other option is to do it on Friday prior to the course preview. It's the easiest thing probably to do is come in and kind of get things set up. We ask again to kind of practice social distancing as far as setup goes. There's a lot of room that we have within the facility, and so just make sure that you're giving some of the other teams some room. Last thing again, it's just kind of following the rules of the road during these course previews. It's just super important to make sure that we're being safe out there. Preference would be to ride in smaller groups rather than very large groups. But just be smart and be safe when you're out there. Packet pickup on Saturday, again, 9 a.m. to noon. There's a pavilion in our race site area. It's gonna be impossible to miss. Similar to Des Moines, if you are part of a team, you are not picking up your packet. The coaches will go ahead and pick that packet up and distribute it. And if you are not part of a team, your parents should come and pick those packets up. We're requesting that it just be one person that comes and picks up the packet. We are requesting that they wear a mask and maintain physical distance. Inside that packet, you're going to have pretty much what you need. You're going to have your race number tattoos, a helmet sticker, a bike sticker, your swim cap, and your timing chip. In addition to that, there'll also be a waiver temperature check form that must be completed on race morning. Athletes who are not with the team should have a parent pick up the packet, as I mentioned earlier. Very important that athlete temperature check and waiver. All athletes are going to be required to complete the temperature check and the waiver form on race morning. So athletes have to come to the race pavilion on race morning between 5:30 and 9:30. You need to be wearing a mask and you need to bring your signed form or waiver from your race packet. The volunteers that will be there will take your temperature with a touch-free thermometer. Athletes that have a temperature over 100.5 or higher will not be allowed to compete, and they will be asked to leave the race site. The one thing from talking to the Flatlands volunteers is I would highly recommend that you do not come to the race site wearing your helmet. And when, obviously when you're riding, you're wearing it, but when you're not riding your bike, I would take that race helmet off. They did say that they had a little bit of elevated temperatures, not over the limit, but they were elevated for those that had helmets on. And again, it's critical that you do this as soon as you get to the site, prior to any warm-ups, prior to anything that would really kind of elevate your temperatures. The volunteers are going to record that temperature on the form, and then the athletes must bring that completed form to the transition where the volunteers will collect it. And again, just to reiterate, when you're going into transition, the athletes must wear a mask in transition. So continuing on into transition, some of the changes, you come at your assigned time. I'll get to that in a second. You need to have your equipment, your tattoos, and bike and helmet stickers all in place. You won't be allowed in transition without a mask or a completed waiver and temperature check form, and there's really no exceptions on that. You're going to be allowed to rack your bike at the assigned spot. Officials will then be on hand and they'll be reviewing your equipment after the athletes leave the area. And we will be, similar to Des Moines, sanitizing the transition area after each race. So you'll see the volunteers doing that in between the races. From a swim start standpoint, again, just changes that we're implementing this year. You should arrive during your assigned swim preview time. Again, I'll go through that. Your swim caps and timing chips are located in your athlete packet. And athletes will not be required to wear a mask in the swim area. So once you get to this area, you will not be forced to wear a mask. But I will say coaches that are in that area we are asking that they do wear masks. And then once the swim warm-up closes, we're going to have athletes stand at their assigned spot on the start line. So you're going to have, assigned numbers. That number will correspond to a spot on the start line, and that will be, where you go ahead and start for the event. So if you're, athlete 202, you'll stand in spot number 2. If you're athlete 155, you'll stand in spot 55. If you're athlete 43, you'll stand in spot 43. Once the announcer reads all the athletes' names, he will say, "Athletes, you're now hands in the starter." The lead official will announce on your mark and sound an air horn to start the race. From a finish line standpoint, some of the feedback that I got in Des Moines is we still had a lot of athletes congregating with parents and other athletes, and it's really critical after the race and when you're done with your race that you grab like a drink and a snack and really make yourself back to the team tent. We just can't have big groups all together at the finish line. And so we'll have volunteers again, trying to enforce some of that. So be aware of that and treat them with respect. If you're an athlete that needs medical attention, we will have medical personnel on site, an ambulance near the transition, and that's where we will get assistance for you. There are no cooling pools similar to Des Moines this year. We will have ice packs available for individuals, but there will not be any cooling pools. And as I mentioned, it's really just grab kind of your drink, your snacks, your ice, and then really just try to exit as quickly as possible. And then the volunteers are going to obviously be asking you to return to your tents. Just schedule, as far as the schedule goes, junior girls, again, 7 a.m. race start. So that means the temperature check waiver station is going to open about 5:30. And that, again, will be the first thing that you would do when you arrive to the site. Athlete check-in transition will open about 15 minutes later. The swim course will open about a half hour later, and then transition closes around 6:45. We will start to get athletes ready to go around 6:50 a.m. To get us started at 7 a.m. Again, very similar to what you would have seen last week. And then on the junior elite male side of things, similar time frame, race start of 8:30, and you can see kind of all the pieces that are very similar to what we just went through. Youth Elite female schedule, 10 a.m. start. The athlete check-in is opening up at 8:45. Again, just to reiterate, for all of these groups, as soon as you get there, the first 20 minutes of the morning at 5:30 will be solely dedicated to the junior elite girls. But from that point on, when you arrive at the Recplex facility, you are welcome to come and get your temperature checked as soon as you arrive. And then Youth Elite Male, which is the last group, 11 a.m. start, with an athlete check-in starting everything around 9:45. Youth Elite course, our course is exactly the same as last year. We've had some very warm weather, so I'd expect a non-wetsuit swim. It's going to be a run and start from the beach. It's 375-meter swim. There'll be 2 laps on the bike and then 1 lap on the run. We do have a lap out rule in effect. I know in Des Moines we did have some lap outs, and it occurred where a runner was finishing before the bikes made their way back, and we have a similar circumstance here in Pleasant Prairie where that could happen. Just highly encourage those that are out there on the bike to really try to push and get through the bike so that we don't have that lap out rule get enforced. There's no changes to the course from the prior year. Everything is the same. We'll go ahead and start out of transition down the road and out of the park onto Highway H, where you do a U-turn, come back into the park, come all the way down towards the entrance, turn back around. And again, it's 2 loops. So you go out for your second loop if you're Youth Elite. And after you're done with your second laps, you're pulling back into that transition area. The Junior Elite course, the big difference this year is that instead of doing 2 loops on the swim, we will only be doing 1 loop, similar to Des Moines. We feel that it just spreads the field out a little bit more than a 2-loop swim. Very similar other than that, 750-meter swim. There's going to be four bike loops for the juniors, and then a 5K run of 2 laps. Again, similar to the Youth Elite, there is a lap out rule in effect as well. The one thing I will say is that we are doing differently this year is that we had quite a few lap outs in the junior races last year, and what ends up happening is if the runner gets to the turnaround before our cyclists make it back to that point, we did lap those individuals out in the past. We are going to allow those individuals, we're going to cone things off and allow those individuals on the bike to continue, even if the runner gets to that point prior to those bikers making it there. So that's the one change I will say. Again, our goal is to try to make this a good experience and try to get as many finishers as we possibly can. As far as team tents and trailers go, again, within that grass area, you'll see us setting up on Friday. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to some of the volunteers and we'll try to help. Our recommendation would be to have it done prior to the 8 a.m. course preview, or you can do it after the course preview. If we do have wet weather, if you could just be aware of the grassy area. We've had situations in the past where some cars and trucks have ruined some of that, and the Recplex does hold us responsible for that. So if there is damage, there may need to be a charge back to the team or the organization that caused it. And then just a note that team tents and trailers cannot be removed until the last race. Everyone needs to kind of that has brought their team tent or trailer that needs to drive out of there will have to wait until that final event. And just some last kind of reminders. I know in Des Moines early in the morning it was a little bit buggy, and we have a very similar situation in Wisconsin. So if you're there early in the morning, I would definitely bring some bug spray. If you have any questions about the rules or the equipment document, you'll see that here. Separately, I am sending a rules and just overall, typical rules kind of format that we do at every event. And so Paul Brandt has put together like a 13-minute video to give you kind of all the things that you need to be aware of for the race, similar to what he did in Des Moines. And if you have any questions about just racing in general at this level, there obviously is the Junior Elite Series guide that you can take a look at. And the one thing specific to this race that I did want to bring up is that, as in the past, athletes are not allowed to cross that center line. Like we'll have cones set up, throughout the bike course, and again, working on getting hay bales like we have in the past. But just be aware of that, that at no point are athletes allowed to cross across that center line. And then similar to Des Moines, we'll have the same race timer that we've had here for a long period of time. It's race time, and Eric will have those results posted at this link. But if you went to the It's Race Time results area, you're going to see our results there. So I think that is it on the athlete guide. If there are specific questions, you can feel free to email me. Again, there'll be a separate link here for just from Paul's perspective, going through all the details that everyone needs to know. But if there's any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'll obviously be there all weekend. You can catch me on Friday and Saturday. We'd be more than happy to take you through any questions and make sure that you're comfortable with everything you need to know for the event. So really look forward to hosting you in Prairie, and we're hoping for a great weekend, and we will see you then. So if you have any questions, just reach out, and we will talk to you soon.